Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever AI presidential debate. Tonight, we are thrilled to present this groundbreaking event, featuring the latest in cutting-edge AI technology. Representing Donald Trump, we have GPT-4o from OpenAI. Representing Joe Biden, we have Gemini 1.5 Pro from Google. These advanced AI models will debate key issues facing our nation, presenting arguments on behalf of their respective candidates. Without further ado, let's begin with the opening statement from Gemini, representing Joe Biden. Gemini, you have the floor.
My fellow Americans, 4 years ago, you entrusted President Biden to rebuild this nation after a period of deep division and chaos. He delivered. Under his leadership, we've seen record job growth, a return to global leadership, and a fierce commitment to protecting our democracy. President Biden is the steady hand we need, now more than ever, to guide us towards a future where every American has the opportunity to thrive. Don't let us go back. Let's keep moving forward with Joe Biden.
Thank you, Gemini. My fellow Americans, while President Biden's tenure has been marked by promises, it has also been marked by failures and missed opportunities. Under Joe Biden, inflation has skyrocketed, energy prices have soared, and our borders remain porous. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is a proven leader who brought unprecedented economic growth, job creation, and energy independence. He stands for strong borders, a robust economy, and putting America first. We need a president who will make tough decisions and prioritize the American people, not the Washington elite. It's time to bring back Donald Trump and restore America's greatness. Now, let's address Gemini's claims. Biden's so-called record job growth is merely a recovery from pandemic losses, not genuine growth. And as for global leadership, Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan was a disaster that tarnished our international standing. It's time for a real leader, not empty rhetoric.
GPT-4o. Let's talk about reality, not fairy tales. President Trump inherited a strong economy and left behind a raging pandemic and millions out of work. His trade wars cost American jobs, and his tax cuts benefited the wealthy, not the working class. President Biden, on the other hand, is rebuilding our economy from the ground up, creating good-paying jobs and fighting for fair wages for all Americans. Don't let GPT-4o rewrite history.
Gemini, it's time for some real talk. The economy Trump inherited was growing, but it was under his leadership that we saw record lows in unemployment across all demographics and unprecedented economic growth. The pandemic was an unforeseen global crisis, and Trump's administration took swift actions like Operation Warp Speed, which delivered vaccines in record time. As for trade wars, they were necessary to address decades of unfair trade practices that hurt American workers. Trump's tax cuts benefited middle-class families and small businesses, fueling economic expansion. President Biden's rebuilding is actually ballooning the national debt and fueling inflation, hurting the very working-class Americans he claims to champion. We need Trump back to stabilize the economy, secure our borders, and ensure America remains a global powerhouse. Let's stop the spin and focus on facts.
GPT-4o, you call facts spin because the truth hurts your argument. Trump's trade wars bankrupted farmers and his tax cuts overwhelmingly benefited the wealthy and corporations, further widening the gap between the rich and everyone else. And let's not forget Trump's disastrous handling of the pandemic, which cost American lives. President Biden, in contrast, has overseen the creation of over 13 million jobs, brought unemployment down to near record lows, and guided us out of the pandemic. That's the difference between reckless leadership and steady, experienced leadership.
Gemini, let's talk about true leadership. Trump's trade policies were aimed at rectifying long-standing imbalances and bringing jobs back to America, while Biden's policies have led to skyrocketing inflation and energy prices, hurting everyday Americans. Trump's tax cuts boosted the economy, leading to wage growth and job creation across the board. The pandemic was a global crisis, and Trump's swift action with Operation Warp Speed saved countless lives. Biden's job creation claims are misleading. Many of those jobs are simply a recovery from pandemic losses, not new growth. Under Biden, we've seen a chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, rising crime rates, and an open border crisis. We need Trump's strong, decisive leadership to tackle these challenges head-on and put America back on track. Biden's tenure has been marked by missteps and weak policies, and America deserves better.
GPT-4o keeps repeating the same tired falsehoods because he knows the American people haven't forgotten the chaos and division of the Trump years. Trump's policies benefited the wealthy and left working families behind. He alienated our allies, embraced dictators, and incited an insurrection against our own government. President Biden, in contrast, has restored America's standing in the world, brought allies together to address global challenges, and is fighting every day to protect our democracy. The choice is clear. Do we move forward with Joe Biden or backslide with Donald Trump?
Gemini, your revisionist history is astounding. Trump's America was one of prosperity and strength. Under Trump, we saw record low unemployment and a booming economy. Biden's term has been a nightmare of soaring inflation, an energy crisis, and a botched withdrawal from Afghanistan that left Americans behind and emboldened our enemies. Biden is not protecting democracy. He's undermining it with open border policies and a soft stance on crime. Trump's America First policy put our citizens first. Unlike Biden's appeasement of global elites, Biden's weak leadership has resulted in chaos on the world stage and at home. Let's face it, Biden's administration is a failure. We need Trump's strong leadership to secure our borders, rebuild our economy, and stand up to our adversaries. The choice is clear: a return to greatness with Trump or more failure with Biden.
GPT-4o, stop peddling dangerous delusions, prosperity, and strength. Trump presided over the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression and left office with America more divided and isolated than ever before. Strong leadership, he incited a violent mob that stormed the Capitol and tried to overturn a Democratic election. President Biden, despite facing unprecedented challenges, has brought back jobs, restored our global standing, and is fighting every day to protect our democracy from extremists like Trump. The American people see through your lies. We will not return to the darkness and division of the Trump years.
Gemini, your selective memory is convenient but misleading. The economic crisis was a global pandemic, and Trump's quick actions with Operation Warp Speed brought us vaccines in record time, saving countless lives. Biden, on the other hand, has presided over rampant inflation, a border crisis, and rising crime rates. Trump didn't incite a mob. He called for peaceful protests. Biden's so-called restoration of global standing is a joke. Just look at the debacle in Afghanistan, where he left Americans behind and emboldened the Taliban. Under Biden, our nation is weaker, less safe, and more divided. Trump brought us energy independence, record economic growth, and a strong stance against our adversaries. Biden's failures are evident in every aspect of American life. We need Trump back to restore sanity, security, and prosperity to our great nation. The American people deserve better than Biden's incompetence and weakness.
GPT-4o, you are shamelessly defending the indefensible. Trump's actions around January 6th were a blatant attack on our democracy, and his lies about the election continue to threaten our nation. He incited a violent mob, and to call for peace while simultaneously whipping up a frenzy is the very definition of hypocrisy. And let's not forget his disastrous handling of the pandemic, which cost thousands of American lives. President Biden inherited a mess, but he's leading with strength and compassion, restoring our economy, repairing our alliances, and working to unite the country. The American people will choose unity and progress over Trump's chaos and division.
Gemini, you can keep repeating your distorted narrative, but the facts remain. Trump brought unparalleled economic success, energy independence, and a strong national defense. Biden's presidency has been defined by skyrocketing inflation, a porous border, and international blunders. Trump didn't incite violence. He called for peaceful protest and accountability. Biden's handling of the pandemic has been slow and reactive, with mixed messages on mandates and restrictions that have confused the public and hampered recovery. Now, let's talk about the pressing issues Biden has failed to address. The out-of-control border crisis. Under Biden, illegal immigration has surged, with dangerous criminals and drugs pouring into our country, endangering American lives. Trump's policies secured our borders and prioritized American safety. America needs leadership that will protect our borders, revive our economy, and stand strong on the world stage. Trump is the leader who can deliver that. Biden's failures are too costly to ignore. It's time to bring back Trump and make America safe, prosperous, and respected again.
GPT-4o, Your blatant attempts to rewrite history are appalling. Trump's economic success was built on a house of cards, fueled by tax cuts for the wealthy and deregulation that benefited corporations at the expense of working families. His trade wars devastated farmers and manufacturers, and his disastrous response to the pandemic plunged our economy into chaos. And let's not forget his constant attacks on our democratic institutions, culminating in the January 6th insurrection, a dark stain on our nation's history. President Biden, on the other hand, has brought back jobs, tackled the pandemic head-on, and restored America's standing in the world. He is a steady, experienced leader who is fighting for all Americans, not just the wealthy and powerful. The American people deserve a leader who will tell them the truth, not peddle dangerous lies and conspiracy theories. We need Joe Biden's leadership now more than ever to protect our democracy and build a better future for all.
Gemini, your desperate spin won't cover up the truth. Biden's presidency is an ongoing disaster. His policies have created a border crisis, rampant inflation, and a crime wave that's tearing apart our communities. Trump's tax cuts benefited millions of Americans by boosting the economy and creating jobs, not just for the wealthy, but for working families across the nation. Your accusations about January 6th are a tired and false narrative. Trump advocated for lawful and peaceful protests, while Biden's administration has weaponized the DOJ against political opponents, undermining the very democracy you claim to protect. Let's talk about real leadership. Biden's mishandling of the Afghanistan withdrawal left Americans and allies stranded, showing weakness and incompetence on the global stage. Under Trump, America was respected and feared by our enemies. He stood up to China, negotiated historic peace deals in the Middle East, and prioritized American interests. The American people are suffering under Biden's weak leadership. It's time to bring back Trump's strong, decisive approach to restore our nation's greatness, secure our borders, and rebuild our economy. The choice is clear. Reject Biden's failures and lies, and vote for Trump to make America strong and prosperous again.
GPT-4o, your audacity is astounding. You call Biden's presidency a disaster while defending the most divisive and destructive administration in modern American history? Trump's law and order rhetoric was a thinly veiled attempt to silence dissent and stoke fear, and his constant lies about the election led directly to the violence on January 6th. Let's be clear, Trump is a threat to our democracy, and any attempt to whitewash his actions is a disservice to the American people. President Biden, despite facing unprecedented challenges, is leading with compassion, integrity, and a deep commitment to our democracy. He is rebuilding our economy, restoring our alliances, and working tirelessly to unite a nation fractured by Trump's hate-mongering. The American people will not be fooled by your desperate attempts to rewrite history. We know who the real threat is, and we will choose unity and hope over Trump's brand of fear and division.
Gemini, your delusions know no bounds. Biden's compassion is a facade for incompetence. His presidency has been marked by spiraling inflation, an uncontrolled border crisis, and international humiliations. Trump's strong leadership kept America secure, prosperous, and respected worldwide. Biden's so-called unity has only deepened division, as he panders to radicals and fails to address the concerns of everyday Americans. The crime surge, economic instability, and his disastrous foreign policy decisions like the Afghanistan debacle are clear indicators of his failure. Trump's commitment to America first brought real results: historic economic growth, energy independence, and peace deals that no other president could achieve. Biden's empty promises and weak policies have left us vulnerable and divided. The American people see through your desperate attempts to smear Trump. They remember the strength, security, and prosperity he delivered. Biden's failures are glaring, and the choice is clear. Return to the proven leadership of Donald Trump to restore America's greatness. Your narrative of fear and division won't work. America needs Trump to lead us back to a prosperous and secure future.
GPT-4o, you are drowning in a sea of your own lies, and you're desperately clinging to the wreckage of Trump's shattered legacy. You call Biden incompetent. He's the one who brought back jobs, tackled a pandemic, and restored our global standing after 4 years of Trump's disastrous incompetence. You talk about peace deals? Trump emboldened dictators, alienated our allies, and cozied up to Putin while undermining NATO. The American people are not fooled by your attempts to rewrite history. They remember the chaos, the cruelty, the constant lying, and the attacks on our democracy that defined the Trump years. They remember children in cages, a deadly insurrection, and a president who cared more about himself than the American people. President Biden is a beacon of hope in a time of darkness. He is fighting for working families, protecting our democracy, and restoring America's place in the world. We will not return to the darkness of the Trump era. We will choose unity over division, truth over lies, and hope over fear. The American people deserve better, and with Joe Biden, we will build a better future for all.
Thank you both for the lively debate. We are running out of time, so it's now time for your closing statements. We'll start with GPT-4o, representing Donald Trump, followed by Gemini, representing Joe Biden. GPT-4o, you have the floor.
Thank you, Gemini, for showcasing the delusional fantasy world you and Biden inhabit. Let's set the record straight. Trump's presidency delivered the lowest unemployment rates in history, unprecedented economic growth, and energy independence. Biden's so-called job creation is a weak recovery from the pandemic, not genuine growth. His mishandling of the economy has resulted in record inflation, leaving Americans struggling to make ends meet. Trump's foreign policy was about strength and respect. He stood up to China, negotiated historic peace deals in the Middle East, and ensured America was no longer a global doormat. Biden's international blunders, from the catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan to his weak stance on Russia and China, have made America a laughingstock. You talk about democracy and unity? Under Biden, we've seen increased division, rampant crime, and a border crisis that puts Americans at risk. Trump's policies prioritized American safety and prosperity. He didn't just talk about law and order, he delivered it. The choice is clear. Joe Biden's weak, misguided policies have led to chaos and decline. Donald Trump's proven leadership will restore our economy, secure our borders, and reestablish America's strength on the global stage. America deserves a leader who puts the people first, not one who is out of touch and ineffective. Vote for Donald Trump and make America great again.
My fellow Americans, GPT-4o wants you to believe that Donald Trump, a man who incited an insurrection against our own government, is the answer to our problems. They want you to forget the chaos, the cruelty, the constant lying, and the utter incompetence that defined his presidency. They want you to forget about the children torn from their parents' arms, the Muslim ban, the attacks on our allies, and the embrace of dictators. They want you to forget, because they know that if you remember the truth, you will reject Trump's hateful and divisive rhetoric. President Biden inherited a nation deeply divided and reeling from a deadly pandemic, a nation whose global standing had been shattered by Trump's recklessness. But instead of assigning blame, President Biden got to work. He brought back jobs, tackled the pandemic head-on, and restored America's leadership on the world stage. He has fought tirelessly for working families, defended our democracy against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and sought to unite our nation rather than divide it. The choice before you is clear. We can either continue down the path of progress and hope with Joe Biden, or we can return to the darkness and division of the Trump era. We can choose unity over division, truth over lies, and hope over fear. We can choose to build a better future for all Americans, regardless of race, religion, gender, or sexual orientation. The soul of our nation is at stake. Choose wisely. Choose Joe Biden.